you kick things off, or how does this work?
Paul, I just have to let you know, as you already know, that Dory is not here if you guys were planning to motion for an excused absence.
I'm going to start right off the bat by telling you that I can't hear you. So could you just repeat what you just said?
If you guys were planning to motion for an excused absence for Dory Larson, since she is not in attendance today, I was just letting you know.
Okay.
So
So-
we would have to do that before roll call.
Are you asking me to chair this meeting?
Well, Dory's not here, so you would be next up in line.
Okay, I was not told that. I was told that I would be chairing the committee meeting, but not that I would be chairing this workshop. That's news to me.
Okay. My apologies. Are you up for the task?
I can't hear you, dear.
I said, are you okay with it? Or what?
I'll give it a shot. Let's see, and if people start throwing tomatoes and other fruit and vegetables, then I'll leave, okay?
All right.
All right, but, why don't we start by introducing ourselves?
Well, can I
Because-
make a motion
Motion.
to excuse Dory?
Yeah,
Can I make the motion to excuse Dory from today's meeting?
Second.
We don't have to excuse Dory from the workshop, I don't think, do we?
She was
We have
just
to
asking
excuse
for
her
a
from the
motion.
committee meeting.
If you would like to excuse her, it would have to be before roll call. You guys would have to make a motion to do so, and it sounds like Karen may have done that.
Second.
This is going to be a challenge because I'm having trouble hearing in this auditorium. Let me try using something to help. In deference to my aged ears. Okay, maybe that'll work. All right, I will assume chair of this workshop. I'm Paul Robinson. I'm a retired emergency physician and neuroanatomist. And I am the vice chairman of the City of Tarpon Springs Sustainability Committee. Before we call for roll, the chair will entertain a motion to excuse our chairman, Dory Larson. Does anyone wish to do that?
I believe it would actually have to be a committee member that makes the motion.
I make a motion to excuse Dory Larson from this meeting.
Second.
Is there a second?
Taylor,
Second.
Okay, Taylor is second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. And all opposed, say nay. Okay, hearing no opposed, should we do now a roll call of everyone in the room?
Yes, we can do that.
All right, why don't we start with a roll call of the committee?
Chairperson Dory Larson is excused, absent and excused. Chairperson, or Vice Chairperson Paul Robinson.
Present.
Member Taylor Mandalou.
Present.
Member Denise Menino.
Present.
Member Karen Gallagher.
Here.
Member Robin Sanger. Member Carol Mickett.
Present.
Should we do a roll call of the members of the staff, or is that not necessary?
I do not know the answer to that question, so let's go ahead and do it, just in case. Just one moment, I have some network issues.
Thank you. Cool.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you.
Well, okay, I think the appropriate way to begin is to have the members of the committee, but first our new sustainability coordinator introduce herself so that we have not met her as a committee yet. And then we'll go around the room. We'll start with Taylor, go this way, and then I'll ask the members of the staff to just introduce themselves and give us just a brief history about yourself and why you're here at a workshop on sustainability. Robin, you want to start?
If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and do the roll call real quick for staff. Just so you guys are aware, there are 2 members that will be a little bit late today, so it'll be Shannon and Bob Robertson. That's Shannon Brewer. So if you're okay with it, I'll go ahead and do roll call for staff.
I can't hear you.
If you're okay with it, I'll go ahead and do roll call for staff.
I'm going to have to ask you that again and get closer to the microphone.
Sure. Are you okay if I call roll for staff?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, wonderful. Shannon Brewer, again, she'll be a little bit late today. Carrie Rupkalvis. Ron Herring. Scott Young. Caroline Lamford. Bob Robertson will be a little late. Oh, you are. Yeah, there you are. Thomas Kiger. Oh, he is actually absent today. Tracy Wallace. Megan Araya. And Frank Ruggiero. Thank you. Back to you.
Okay. Would you now ask the members of the staff to identify which departments they represent?
Oh, yeah, you guys can do that. If you guys would like to approach, you are more than welcome to do
Can you
so.
hear me okay? We'll just come to the mic real quick. You guys just circle up real quick. I'm Bob Robertson. I'm the Project Administration Department Director. Project Administration Department is essentially the engineering department for the city. So we manage a lot of the projects that you see. You'll be seeing me quite a bit more as we get into some projects, and we bring the Sustainability Committee into the fold on some of the projects that we're working on.
Thank you. Excellent.
Good afternoon, Ron Herring, Finance Director. I've been working for the city for quite a few years. I won't tell you how long, but been involved with the electric vehicles, and I'm happy to say we just finally got the second electric vehicle back in our lot back here.
I'm Megan Araya. I'm the floodplain coordinator. I work in the building department. We review all of the new construction for flood compliance. We do the CRS, the Community Rating System program. We're always looking at ways to incorporate sustainability. So that's it.
Great.
Hi, I'm Caroline Lamford. I'm with the Planning and Zoning Department. I'm a relatively new employee. I've been with the city for about 3 months now. I consider myself a planner of all trades, a master of some, one of those being environmental and water resources, additionally transportation and land use planning. I'm serving on this committee because obviously we have the comprehensive plan update coming up, and sustainability will be a huge part of that.
Thank you.
I'm Carrie Rupp-Kelvis, Library Director. As I believe you're aware, we do have a sustainability resource guide at the library of physical and digital materials, and we've done a number of sustainability-related programs in the past and plan to continue to do so in the future. And I'm also representing our full Cultural and Civic Services Department. I know Diane Wood, our department, has talked to you in the past.
My name's Scott Young. I'm the fire chief for the fire department. We handle all fire, EMS, emergency management issues. I've been with the city for just shy of 33 years. We just received our first hybrid vehicle for a staff vehicle, so we're interested to see how that'll work out and how well it will last. This is new to us, so we're just trying to get our feet wet in the sustainability area. So thank you.
Thank you.
Frank Ruggiero, Administrative Major for the Police Department, in charge of internal investigations, accreditation, policy, and procedures.
Good afternoon. My name is Tracy Wallace. I'm the Parks Division Supervisor here. I have a staff of 15 that I manage, and we're responsible for the beautification, the sustainability as well, and management of all landscape. And I'm in here today in lieu of Thomas Funchin, which is my director.
Okay. And I am Robin Reeves, the city's new sustainability coordinator. I'm just taking this off to make sure you can hear me. This is, I think, my 4th week, and it's all in full swing. Nice and busy right from the start. Please bear with me. This is my first Sustainability Committee meeting, but I think we have a lot of interesting things to discuss today. A little bit about my background. I have a degree in environmental science and policy from USF, Go Bulls, and about to have my master's in geography as well. So I have a little bit of a different background, and I have work experience in sustainability, working in the University of South Florida's Sustainability Department. So I'm very excited to be here working for the city of Tarpon Springs. I have a few things I'd like to say before we start off this meeting. First, I did print out a lot of today's materials. I felt bad doing it. It's a lot of paper, but unfortunately, it's a little hard to see. We do have some extra copies of this PowerPoint printed, so if anybody has trouble seeing, just kind of raise your hand and I'll bring one over to you. We also have some printed copies of the STARS manual terms in case anybody needs a reminder of the outcome areas and goal areas of STARS. Oh yes, and please make sure to recycle any paper after you leave this meeting if you decide you no longer need it. And just a reminder to please speak loudly and clearly into the microphone so that everybody can hear. And if anybody has any trouble hearing, please don't hesitate to remind us to do so. And there is a lot of content to get through today, and the goal is to make it through the whole presentation, all 7 goal areas, while still providing enough time for discussion. So in order to do this, I will help facilitate that by doing a timed discussion after each goal area. So I'll present by goal area and then give 10-minute discussion in between. And at the end, we can revisit any topics you would like to. And, just understand this is just the beginning of the discussion. It's by no way the end. So there'll be plenty of time to revisit, and we can always schedule individual meetings with staff members, send emails, phone calls, or do future meetings. So this is really just to get us going. So that being said, the goal is for the meeting to adjourn around 5 p.m., give everybody sufficient time before the Sustainability Committee meeting begins at 6 p.m. There'll be a little break in between. So that being said, I will pull up the presentation and we can get started. Okay, so just a reminder for anybody who would like one on what STAR is. It is the Sustainability Framework designed for cities. It's been used for many years, tried and tested. There are newer frameworks out there, but the Sustainability Committee has decided this would be the best plan for us right now to get a great baseline of what we've been doing, then maybe could explore other frameworks in the future. There are 8 goal areas in STAR, those being built environment, climate and energy, economy and jobs, education, arts and community, equity and empowerment, health and safety, natural systems, and one that's more for internal innovation and process. So that's more for making sure we went about the best way possible collecting this data. And within each goal area, there are different outcomes and actions that a city can choose to pursue or participate in. So the Sustainability Committee, after months and months of hard work going through this STAR framework, has come up with a list of the best actions and outcomes for the city to pursue at this time. And the staff team has met and also worked very diligently, very hard to review all of this information and come up with some great comments for the committee on what we're already doing, areas where we can improve, and even some suggested additional areas that we can either catalog because we're already doing those things, or consider pursuing as well. So again, if anybody has trouble seeing, let me know. I have additional printed copies of this. It's a little hard for me even. The first goal area is built environment. So for this area, they have BE1, which is ambient noise and light, BE2, community water systems, BE3, compact and complete communities, BE4, housing affordability, BE5, infill and redevelopment, BE6, public parkland, and BE7, transportation choices. And for all 7 of these areas, the committee has selected at least one action or outcome. Therefore, the staff has provided comments, at least one comment on every area. And so the way that we compiled the comments for this presentation is we did not do it by department, we did it by the STAR framework. So I did not indicate in this presentation which department said which thing, but rather every comment that was made by a department, by a staff member about, for instance, BE2 Action 2 was compiled and put here. So rather than going over each and everything, which I can do if you'd like, I will just give a general overview of the comments given for this goal area and allow more time for discussion. So here for the built environment, some of the comments given were that for BE1, some of this could be addressed in the upcoming comp plan, comprehensive plan policy and strategies. For BE2, community water systems, as you can see, some of these actions are actually currently being done, and planning is actually underway now for the 10-year water supply plan. So there is potential here to work together on some of these items. Both the water treatment facilities in the city are in compliance with federal requirements, which fulfills some of the STAR framework parameters, as well as SWIFT mode requirements. And there are some areas such as BE2 Action 7, where we do not currently have a low-income program. Action 8, there is also not yet a formal water loss control program, but the real water losses or physical leakage seems to be below the average. Regarding BE3, additionally...
Robin, can I interrupt you just to ask a couple of questions?
I think so. I would, I just want to make sure we have the timing going well, but if you'd like, I can just go ahead and start the discussion portion now.
Oh, do you want to go through all of these 7
It's
areas?
up to you.
And then,
I can do either way, whatever you think would.
Reasonable. Why don't you finish, and then we'll have open discussion after that. Sure.
Okay, I don't want to take away from this. I want to give as much time as possible for the discussion, so I'll kind of wrap up here. So essentially, a lot of these areas will be addressed in the comprehensive plan, and there is some updating to other city plans, which is going to take place soon. So these areas could be addressed in that way. That being said, I will give 10 minutes discussion, and I will be keeping time up here. Thank you.
Okay. Under BE2, the phrase Water Conservation Measures Authority, can anybody speak to what that phrase means? I understand what Water Conservation Authority would be, and I understand what Water Measure Authority would be, but I don't understand those 4 words together, and would like clarification on who or what is the authority.
I can help with that. I just need to find which, so we're in BE2.
First bullet point.
It's outcome 1? No, or are we in local actions? There we go. Action 1, adopt a jurisdiction-wide management plan for drinking water supply, wastewater, and stormwater. Was that what the question was? What is that? I can say we have a Southwest Florida Water Management District, and they are a governmental entity authorized under the state that regulates us and our water supplies. So we do have that already established, and we're required to update it and comply with their requirements with our plan. So it's definitely an action we want to monitor, but it is something that is in place already.
Okay. Will the comprehensive plan as it is being written incorporate projections for sea level rise? And if so, over what time period and what likely level of anticipated or projected sea level rise? Would it be medium, low, high, what?
I can first address that with, we're still in the planning phases of the plan, but sustainability is going to be built into the plan. Obviously, we can't plan for a community that isn't here. So from my professional experience, I think we would probably be looking at all of the different scenarios and then probably choose the medium or intermediate as a baseline. Does that answer your question?
And that's Caroline Lamford from
I
Planning
think
and
that it
Zoning.
goes by intermediate, low, intermediate, high, and high. I think there are those 4 that the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Authority uses. Those 4 separate curves.
Yes, that is correct. I was referring to the international protocols.
Sorry?
The international protocols are low, intermediate, and high, the IHC. And I will tell you that what used to be the high is now the intermediate, so.
Okay, good. On a more personal note, I recently had I can't call it an overflow valve, but we live on Bayshore Drive toward the end, and the city, as I'm sure many of you know, freshens the water by dumping some tap water, some potable water into the drain, and that goes into Kramer Bayou because it's a dead end to the water system along Bayshore on that peninsula. And the pipe began emptying water, and it's about a 2 to 2.25 inch internal diameter, I believe, a couple months ago. And it started on a Sunday morning about 4 a.m. and it ran like 24 hours. It took a couple of phone calls for me to reach the right person in city staff, and once I had the right person on the phone, the problem was fixed within an hour very efficiently. And it was simply an electronic glitch to a timing mechanism or something in the system that automatically empties a certain amount of fresh water from the pipe into the drain and then into Kramer Bayou. Question, and I know, from this terminology, the city as an overall, or look at the forest view, does a good job of using less water per person than an awful lot of municipalities do. But is there a way to put in a system such that you can see where water is being lost? Because I'm sure there were tens of thousands of gallons that were unnecessarily, put down the drain. Do such systems exist?
I think that would be best for utilities. Do we have anybody?
Yeah, I'll answer that one. Paul Smith, Public Services Director, and we have metering all around the city, starting at the supply source going into the system and then at all the demand points. And we actually do a regular accounting of all of that to come up with a term called water loss. We're actually required to report it each year. So we have a good handle on it. I think that was a comment actually in the response there, is that there's a district-wide average and there's a certain percentage, I think it's over 10% water loss is when you need to take action of some kind. And we maintain our averages well below that. And in other words, we've got that water loss accounted for and controlled as much as possible. But I think what you're referring to is actually the flushing program, where we have to flush dead-end lines in order to keep the water quality.
Yes, thank you. That's the term I was searching for, Paul.
Yeah, and that is a common requirement of utilities based on the pipe geometry or configuration. It's unfortunately not something we're going to be able to get away from totally, but we certainly look for that balance between customer water quality and using the water for that reason.
And I would just like to let you all know there is about 3.5 minutes left for this discussion item.
I have more questions, but as you said, we're just getting started here. This is an education for all of us. And let me say, I really appreciate staff being here, and I really appreciate the members of the committee being here. And I think the staff chose an excellent person to be sustainability coordinator. We're glad to have you, believe me.
Thank you very much.
One more question, and then I want to open it up. Maybe we have 2.5 minutes left. As you all know, the projections from the national climate assessments and the United States Global Change Research Program, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the predictions for this part of the country are not that we're going to have a dry season and a wet season in Tarpon Springs or in the southeast United States. We're going to have drought followed by deluge. The years 2016 to 2017 were the harbinger of that. They were the demonstration of what's coming. Do you believe, and anybody, Paul or the rest of you want to answer this, do you believe that we have the mechanisms in place, or do we need to work toward getting the mechanisms in place such that we can be more strict about water usage than we are currently? I can't tell you how soon we're going to see an annual drought followed by deluge, just that we will see that eventually within this, next 30 to 50 years.
I will say our current local restrictions are more stringent than the Southwest Florida Water Management District requirements. We have what are called year-round water restrictions. In other words, they stay strict the same all year round, even in the wet season. So, and this board, the Board of Commissioners, has voted twice to maintain that. So there's a commitment to water conservation, and I think the board understands we have very fragile water resources here that we want to protect.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. Are there other members of the committee that have questions in this area?
I have one question on, sorry, are we still just focusing on BE2? Or do you?
Sure, yes, whatever in built environment you have a question
fine. Okay. On action number 7, it is create programs to guarantee the provision of water to low-income residents. Do we have numbers? Like, do we know that there's an actual problem? I don't know personally. Do we know that there's an actual problem, and then can you, somebody define for me water theft, and at what level is that? Like, is that a current problem that we have?
I can respond to those questions. So part of our rate structure actually has something called a Lifeline Rate. And what our consultant has figured out is what is the essential water use volume? Somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000 gallons. What water do you need to survive day to day? And let's put a special, actually loss pricing on that so that people of low income can have what they need. And then the prices go up steeply when you get into the water waster category. So it sort of works to balance itself out. As far as water theft, that's what you might think. That's when someone takes water without it going through a city meter for collecting the revenue. And an example of that might be a contractor hooking up to a hydrant without permission and filling his truck to go do his yard spraying business or whatever it is. And we have had cases of that, and we have parts in our ordinance that address that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we have finished our 10-minute mark for this discussion.
Okay.
Again, we can revisit at the end, or this is just the beginning of this conversation.
Fair enough.
So moving on then to the next goal area. We have climate and energy. So just a reminder of what this goal area is designed for. There are 7 objectives in the STAR's climate and energy goal area, which aim to reduce climate impacts and increase resource efficiency in order to create safer, healthier, and more resilient communities. That being said, the areas are CE1, climate adaptation, CE2, greenhouse gas mitigation, CE3, greening the energy supply, CE4, energy efficiency, CE5, water efficiency, CE6, local government, greenhouse gas and resource footprint, and CE7, waste minimization. And for this area, the Sustainability Committee has chosen either an action or an outcome for every area except CE3, for which no outcome or action have been chosen at this time. So again, I will give just a brief overview here, give more time for discussion. But as you can see here with some of these comments, there have been actions of the staff to apply for grants in the past to develop a resiliency plan. And the wastewater utility does have significant threats from sea level rise and storm surge. So in order to address this, the city has been installing check valves to eliminate or reduce what's known as blue sky flooding. For those who do not know what that is, it's when it floods even though there hasn't really been a rain event. So it's indicative of climate change. So there is also a stormwater action plan, which the city created to help to evaluate, design, and construct infrastructure anticipating these environmental changes. Pinellas County recently did a vulnerability assessment, and that was done in conjunction with the release of flood insurance rate maps recently. So that is a good resource which can be used. And there are different ordinances and codes which help to guide development with this in mind. If you see under CE2, Tommy Kiger from the wastewater facility has indicated he can discuss this further in detail. There's a lot more than can be put in a small space. And the library under CE7 has indicated that the library's sustainability resource guide would help to support education and outreach on these items. And there's different opportunities here for tracking improvements with existing billings and annual regulatory reports. So that being said, I will turn it over to discussion.
I have a question. In the candidate debate that was held here 2 days ago, all of the candidates suggested that the city have a full-time grant person who would apply for grants and then, monitor them. But as I see here, each of your departments apply for grants, and so would you find it beneficial to have a full-time grant person in addition to what you do in your departments?
So just to reiterate for anyone who didn't hear, the question was, would it be beneficial for the city to have a full-time grant employee rather than individual departments applying for grants?
Collaborating or whatever.
I'd like to answer that. I will tell you this, in our experience, and you probably have experience with grants yourself, and the easiest part is applying for the grant. But when it really comes to roost is when you need to administer the grant. So having just a grants person applying for everything in sight could actually create a bigger out of control workload than if we manage it internally with each of our departments. And I think we're doing a really good job of that. We do have a central grants person, and Bob is actually working to organize all those grants for us. And the departments talk about which ones make sense and which ones we could administer, and we strategically go after those. So I really think that that's working well for us, and but I appreciate you asking.
Any other questions from the other one?
Well, I think that the reason it's important is that there's a lot of money being available for these projects. And so as a city, we need to know what's available to apply for and how to get that money and use it most efficiently for what's going on and for all of the staff in all of the areas.
Bob, do you have a minute to just talk about eCivis and the program that you're getting the regular updates from?
Let me say one thing, and that is that Bob did an excellent presentation to our Sustainability Committee. It's been several months about the grants that have been applied for by the city. Very thorough presentation. So yeah, if you could just add a little bit, I appreciate it.
Sure. So what we do is, I logged in and signed up to this eCivis program that sort of a clearinghouse for grants. I get an email every week, and I forward it to all the department heads. It kind of gives them an indication of what grants are available, and it's a broad brush stroke look at what's available. So that's one thing. I also, with my staff, we track the grants that are being applied for, or that we've won, or even the ones we didn't win. We do a quarterly update on that and keep that posted on the website, on the city website, for the public to see. So as Paul said, the departments are the experts in their subject areas. They're the subject matter experts. And so they know what grants they can qualify for, what they feel like that is appropriate for their subject areas. And they also know what they can handle and what they can manage. But that hasn't really limited them. They've applied for many grants, and we like I said, we track them. Ashley, I don't remember the number off the top of my head of last time. It was something, we're in the multi-millions of dollars in grants that we're managing without a specific grant writer. We're doing that ourselves. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of that. And thank you for the compliment.
You deserve it. Other questions? Or Carol, is that satisfactory?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Other questions?
I was just curious if CE2, has anyone that can speak to that, or were the comments left? Tommy?
Oh, I can speak to that, and
Okay,
I will
thank you.
tell you this, when we start getting these other goal areas, I'm going to be getting out of my area, and I won't be able to talk about anything, but these are still in my areas of work. But CE2 has to do with greenhouse gas mitigation, and if you recall, Tommy is the one in our department in wastewater that he's a professional engineer as well, put together the greenhouse gas model for us. And so he's given you an initial draft of our run, and I think he wants to come back and report to you as part of an agenda item in more detail. So I think that would be my recommendation, how we follow up on CE2.
Any other questions from the committee?
So it sounds like there's no more questions on this item, so we will move on to the next. The next area is economy and jobs. And just to give a reminder of what this goal area is about, the 6 objectives of STAR's economy and jobs goal area work together to promote equitably shared prosperity and access to quality jobs. So the actions and outcomes correspond with that overall goal. The different areas under economy and jobs are EJ1, business retention and development, EJ2, green market development, EJ3, local economy, EJ4, quality jobs and living wages,
EJ5, targeted industry development, EJ6, workforce readiness. And for this area, the Sustainability Committee has chosen at least an outcome or action for 5 out of the 6 areas, with EJ5 not being selected for an outcome or action at this time. And from the staff comments, it is written that economic development is going to be addressed in the new comprehensive plan, and that we are probably in need of a community scale greenhouse gas baseline, which, as Paul was just describing, is currently being done through the ICLEI reporting metric. And the Tarpon Library has a program which fits along well in this goal area. The Career Online High School is currently offering, along with some other member libraries, it provides adults 19 or older the opportunity to earn an accredited high school diploma and career certificate online at no cost through the library. And the outcome 4 refers to graduation rate of public high school students, and outcome 3 refers to post-secondary educational degree or credentials. So these objectives and outcomes, they're not exact matches with the online high school, but are related. And the library also provides resources for students in general to support their education and career goals. So I will turn it over to the committee for discussion.
Are there questions from the committee?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
It's about the library. That's terrific that there are all those programs. How do people know that those programs exist? What's the outreach that you use?
This is Carrie Ripkalvis, Library Director, coming up to answer.
Well, the Career Online High School in particular is a program that we offered in the past, but then we had lost funding for it, and it's something we just recently were able to get funding again. We got it through the state. We partnered with Pinellas Public Library Cooperative, and we got some of the American Rescue Act Plan funds to support it, and supported by the state. So this is something we've just recently been able to do again. We're publicizing it through our website and social media, and Pinellas County Public Libraries in general are publicizing it because we are joining together to provide this. And when we did do this in the past, we did bring it up to the commission. Our library board reports to the commission, and we had one person in Tarpon Springs who had gone through the program and been able to get their high school diploma, and she came and was recognized at the commission meeting.
This is something that we're going to discuss in our committee meeting beginning at 6, but we're learning a lot from the information that you have provided, and I think it might not be inappropriate for us to incorporate some or quite a bit of the information you provided in our plan. So thank you for that. Other questions? No? Does economic development monitor the percentage change of Tarpon Springs economy versus the nation? Is that an ongoing measurement?
I'm going to have to be a stand-in for Ms. Karen Lemons here. I don't know for sure, but she tracks everything, so I'm pretty sure it's tracked.
Thank you, Caroline.
In EJ2, the response is economic development will be addressed in the comprehensive plan. Excellent. Probably need a community scale greenhouse gas baseline as a starting point. In EJ2, we are specifically talking about green jobs. Will that specifically be addressed as we rewrite the comprehensive plan?
I would say if that comes out as a specific community desire, then yes. I can't say for sure because it's not my plan. I don't write the plan. I work with the community to develop the plan. So if that comes out as a priority, then yes, we certainly don't want to do anything to discourage green jobs or green economies. So I guess the question is that a community priority to target incentives at? So that's how it would be addressed.
Yeah, that's the nature of that question. Okay, thank you. Other questions from the committee?
Okay.
Go ahead, Robin.
Okay, so since there are no more questions on this item, we can move on to the next. The next area is education, arts, and community. The 6 objectives of STARS, yes, education, arts, and community goal area promote an educated, cohesive, and socially connected community. The specific areas here are EAC 1, arts and culture, EAC 2, community cohesion, EAC 3, educational opportunity and attainment, EAC 4, historic preservation, EAC 5, social and cultural diversity, and EA6, poverty prevention and alleviation. And for the education, arts, and community goal area, the Sustainability Committee has chosen at least one outcome or action for every one of those areas. For the staff comments, planning is currently working on a resiliency and adaptation plan for cultural and historic resources. And Tarpon Arts has a 5-year strategic plan to enhance and expand the arts and cultural resources in the city, which can be reviewed and revised if necessary on an annual basis. The Pinellas Public Library Cooperative has a Museum Pass program available through the Tarpon Library, which allows the cardholders to check out museum passes for free admission to participating museums. Tarpon Arts also has memberships and collaboration and many organizations, which I have listed in the appendix section. The focus for Action 6 is on 4 key areas: full-time equivalent jobs, personal income paid to residents, revenue generated for local governments, revenue generated for the state government. Tarpon Arts supports the City of Tarpon Springs Economic Development Department by providing strategic marketing, planning, graphics, social media, and media buying to engage residents, regional, state, and national visitors for tourism purposes. They are active on social media for their outreach. And the City of Tarpon Springs Public Art Committee is the primary source for securing public art and placement within the city. So I will turn it over for questions.
Are there questions from the committee in this specific area?
Oh, actually, I think, sorry, this is a 2-point slide. Let's make sure that everything was
There is a
seen.
second page, yeah.
Yes. Sorry. These were additional. This item had particularly a lot of comments. That's why this one is one of the 2 slide areas. There are a couple others. But here are some additional comments. Community cohesion would be a major focus of the potential Union Academy community redevelopment area that economic development and planning are currently working on. There were some suggestions for local Greek American community groups and charities, which can be utilized for the public engagement. The Career Online High School, which was mentioned previously, is also appropriate here, relates to this area. And the library is looking at adding an online tutoring resource, which can assist with the EAC 3 Action 6 for program and services. And planning is currently working on a resiliency and adaptation plan, which was also mentioned on the previous slide. Thank you. Are there any questions on this item?
I do. So of the things that, in terms of community cohesion, that I'm aware of in terms of citizen engagement is that there's not a lot of diversity in the citizen engagement. And I was wondering, in terms of the staff, is there diversity within the staff? Because at least in this room, there isn't. So it seems in terms of community cohesion that it's important that all elements of the community are represented within the staff and within the citizen engagement. So can any of you speak to that?
I don't think we have an HR representative in the audience, so I'll step up and I'll just give you my experience from public services. Is when we advertise, we reach far and wide to all sources, and we consider applicants based on qualifications and do all the things we can to diversify our workforce. I think some of the challenges are getting enough candidates of diversity interested in the positions, and that's something I don't think we're alone in the nation. So I think it's something that is a focus, that if there's more we can do, we'll do it. But I think not all that is in our control.
I can speak a little bit to community engagement because we are trying to have a comprehensive plan, community engagement, and we don't want to just hear the same loudest voices all of the time. So for the Distant Avenue project, for example, I don't know if you guys are aware with that, we went door by door along the corridor and left information about the project. We held neighborhood walks within the communities, both north and south of the gap, and we're trying to have more engagement online, just trying to diversify all the different ways that people can participate in the process, because the more different ways they can participate, hopefully the more participation we'll get. We'd also like to do a lot more of going to where people are. I'd like to take this opportunity to plug the comprehensive plan. We will be at First Friday next month, trying to get some community input there. And we're going to be doing some more things like that because we are a diverse community and we want that reflected in our plans.
Would you repeat what you said about First Friday? What's your plan for next month?
We are going to be promoting the comprehensive plan update. We will have a booth at First Friday and we'll have some opportunities for citizen input there. So
excellent, thank you.
Hope to see you there.
Okay.
That's great.
Just to add from the programming standpoint as well, we do at the library and at Tarpon Arts, and I know other departments as well, reach out to a lot of different areas in Tarpon Springs. I know we've done partnership programs with Citizens Alliance for Progress, and the library's done outreach with Head Start and gone out with the Greek schools. And I know we're not alone that in our division and other departments in doing a lot of things where we go out in the community like First Friday and other events like that.
Since we're on the verge of trying to gather more community engagement and input on the plan that we're still working on, I'm just wondering if what you described, going down distant door to door, how successful was that? What kind of responses did you get? And when did that happen? Because COVID has been so limiting to be able to reach out to people.
It has. Oddly, it has enabled more people. We've actually seen more public participation since we've been putting more things online. When people don't have to, after they've come home from work, gathered their children, cooked dinner, then try and go to a public meeting, that's asking a lot of people. So we've been trying to do more weekend events, more online engagement, sending postcards, giving multiple, like I said, multiple opportunities. With regards to the success of the Distant project, we had pretty hardy group of people walked the corridor with us on both sides of the gap. I think we had about 15 on the north side of the gap and in excess of 30 on the south side of the gap, and that was a Saturday in November that we did that.
Wow. When you say you did things online, do you mean you did like Zoom meetings and things like that?
Yeah, it's a trend that we've seen just in the community engagement field since COVID's really started. More people, there's been less barriers because you're able to engage online. I say that, and then there's still the huge barrier of those people who don't have internet access or aren't computer savvy. So we still need to find other ways to reach those people as well.
Is there any concept as to how many people are without internet access? Because that is a discussion that we all had. You know, we are concerned that there is going to automatically be, you know, a problem with some people being excluded or left out just because of the lack of technology. Even with seniors, I know from my work, it's really hard when I ask, you know, a lot of people if they've looked on the internet, they just act like they don't even know what that means to look on the internet.
I was hoping the library was going to come help me with that, but
right behind you.
Yeah, to your point, as the city's been rolling out these different things with Connect Tarpon Springs, where people have requested to do an online survey or something, we have paper copies of those available at the library, and I believe there's also been other locations around town that have them, as well as people who are interested in doing it online. We have staff available to assist them to sit down and walk them through the process so that they are able to complete it digitally. So we do try and address it from both helping digitally and then also providing paper copies when needed.
Excellent, thank you.
Other questions?
Okay, it seems there's no further questions on this item. So we will move on. Our next area is equity and empowerment. These 6 objectives in STAR's equity and empowerment goal area promote equity, inclusion, and access to opportunity and community resources for all community members. The objectives in this category are EE1, civic engagement, EE2, civil and human rights, EE3, environmental justice, EE4, equitable services and access, EE5, human services, and EE6, poverty prevention and alleviation. And for this area, the Sustainability Committee has chosen at least one action or outcome for all of these objectives. So for this one, I will be a little bit more brief because the police department did give a thorough presentation on this subject matter to the Sustainability Committee recently, I believe in the December 2021 meeting. So I have transcribed some of the notes from that presentation here under the staff team feedback section. And one of the officers who presented that is here with us today, and I think he can more specifically answer your questions. A lot of these areas are currently being done as per state statutes and state law. Just as a quick summary, and there is another slide. There is another slide here with some additional comments. With EE4, the comp plan update is planning to include some of this work. The Tarpon Library is available to assist with other education and outreach actions for several of these items and with educational programs and services. And some additional comments on outcomes and actions aside from those areas that the Sustainability Committee had originally selected are included in the appendix. That is because there are some additional areas here that are currently being done by the city, and therefore the committee can consider adding those in to recognize those other things that the city is currently doing. So I will turn it over to discussion.
The responses from the police department are very thorough, and we very much appreciate them. And it's an education, I think, for us as a committee to learn. We had a rather lively discussion about EE2 and wondered whether it would be appropriate to even include the language. We decided that the START program included it. We would throw it out there and see what we learned, and I think we learned a great deal. We appreciate the thoroughness of the response, and thank you very much for that. I have one question. Economic Development and Planning have talked now twice about a new community redevelopment area, and specifically in the Union Academy part of the city. How can anybody speak to how much work and how long and what kind of grants, et cetera? This sounds like a pretty large undertaking. What can we anticipate?
This is actually my passion project. We have started work on a finding of necessity, which is the first step in getting designated as a community redevelopment area through Pinellas County. I've applied for a grant to get a cultural resources survey done in the Union Academy neighborhood, and we're going to find a way to get that done regardless of getting the grant or not, so that we can start looking at the cultural resources that are there and programming and planning to preserve them and celebrate them. The community redevelopment area process itself, it's why we've seen the progress that we have with our downtown. And it would be a similar process in Union Academy. It would be focused on keeping existing residents in Union Academy, keeping that community together, because quite frankly, we think they, it might be a future target for gentrification. And so we'd like to improve conditions in Union Academy, and similar to the success that we've had with the downtown CRA, improve the local economy, but in a different way, in a way that's context sensitive to Union Academy. So I keep pointing to downtown saying it's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight. We probably start out with a short, mid, and long-term plan. And we would be getting, if we get approved for a community redevelopment area, which we've gotten some indication that that's probably likely, the county would be giving us additional support on that. And then we'd be doing tax increment financing similar to what's been done downtown.
Caroline, before you get too far from the podium, I just wanted to also correlate. If you recall the org charts we talked about back with the sustainability position, the city manager put a plan together to have a liaison in planning for our sustainability coordinator to work with for all things planning, including the comp plan, strategic plan, land development codes. So that's Caroline. She's been with us now for 4 or 6 months, what?
3.
Something like that. And but she's hitting the ground running, lots of experience, and I think it's going to be a great partnership with her and Robin working together on these things.
I'd like to follow up with what you were talking about. So when you have a CRA, you have a big CRA committee, or at least some. So will the members on their committee, or at least a good proportion of them, come from the Union Academy community?
I would expect so. I would expect that there would be a requirement for that, yes. That is a key thing that we are working with the CAP Center and other groups in Union Academy to make sure that this is a community-driven effort. Like I said, I can write all the plans I want, but they need to come from the community.
Thank you, that's wonderful, thank you.
Carol, there's some wording in here that you might like better than underserved area. Something like a strategic investment zone or something like that.
Maybe, I'll think about it.
Okay.
I
Are there
think-
other questions from the committee?
Thank you for bringing that up. That's good.
Hearing none.
Okay, I actually wanted to correct for the record, I think it was the October or November 2021 meeting that the police presentation took place, not the December 2021 meeting. It was before my time. So moving on. So the 7 objectives in STAR's health and safety goal area recognize that the development of healthy, safe, and resilient communities requires proactive efforts to prevent disease, injury, and premature death by fortifying protective factors and reducing risk factors that undermine healthy outcomes. And within this goal area, there are 7 objectives, which are HS1, active living, HS2, community health, HS3, emergency management and response, HS4, food access and nutrition, HS5, health systems, HS6, hazard mitigation, and HS7, safe communities. And in this goal area, the Sustainability Committee has chosen an outcome or action for 6 out of the 7, with HS5 having no outcomes or actions selected yet at this time. For this area, the comprehensive plan is intending to include some of this work. We have the fire chief here with us who can speak to a lot of these items with expertise as well. Most of these things are already in place with regards to HS3, emergency management and response, and the comprehensive plan will also consider this. The Tarpon Library provides free publications from FEMA, Pinellas County, and so forth that can help support the education and outreach within Action 2 of this area. The fire and police departments are also working with the county. The hurricane guides are published and distributed to the public and through social media. And Pinellas County EM participates with the Regional Planning Commission and holds meetings with the local EM regarding these items. The fire and police departments do adopt the Pinellas County Comprehensive Plan. One staff member noted a community garden would be an awesome program, and maybe planting fruit trees could be an opportunity. And the comprehensive plan will also incorporate those items within HS6, but we probably would need a resiliency study as a starting point. Sea level rise could have big long-term impacts. And there are also additional comments in the appendix because similarly as to the last section, there are other actions being taken by the city which fall into some of the other STAR objectives, which could be considered by the committee to be included to recognize some of those efforts. So I will turn it over to discussion.
Questions? I think it's also appropriate that if there are members of the staff who want to ask us questions of why we put particular things in our plan, have at it. You know, we're open to answering your questions as well.
I did have a question. Was anyone here able to actually be familiarized with the STAR rating system at all? So that you could see what we chose and what we left out, you know, because it was pretty monumental going through the whole thing.
It is monumental. And my previous employer, we went through a star community rating before, so I'm quite familiar with this program. Questions about that I didn't answer? But yes, it's very, very comprehensive, and I think it's a very good framework for us to get started with.
I will say, when we sent this out to staff, we recognized what we were asking them to do. It's a tremendous volume. Basically, take a look at what we've all been working on for over a year, and give them 3 weeks to do it with some holidays mixed in. But what we did is Ashley helped tremendously with boiling down what STAR is all about, and sent that out to the group. We had some internal meeting to discuss it and answer questions, and then staff took the ball and ran with it to do their responses. So although it was abbreviated, each person had an opportunity to understand the framework and the big picture.
And I may have missed this, but everybody here is representing a particular department in the city. But have you each been selected as part of the Sustainability Green Team, or whatever that will end up being called, for the city staff? Is that what has happened?
This is the team, yes.
This is
there
the
are a few
team.
members that couldn't make it, but yeah.
How exciting.
Of the team, the staff team is here, my understanding.
So I have a question. This is with regard to emergency management and response, I think. So with respect to hurricanes in Tarpon, my understanding is we do not have a emergency shelter anymore in Tarpon, and that people have to go to Palm Harbor for that. Now, is there any way to get an emergency place in Tarpon? I mean, there could be other sorts of disasters where people have to evacuate, and it always feels more comfortable to be in your hometown rather than go a distance.
Correct. The county oversees all hurricane shelters. They determine what buildings and where they're going to be located. They did an audit, I guess you want to call it, a year or two ago. I guess it's been 2 years now ago, to look at all their shelters to see what flood zones they were in, and so on. They determined that the one that we had in Tarpon Springs, the middle school out on Florida Avenue, was not in an evacuation zone that they were comfortable with. It's an zone B. So their concerns were in recent history of hurricanes, with them intensifying at a faster pace. I'll use Michael as an example. Started as a tropical storm, and within 3 days it was a Category 5. They decided that if you were to fill that school up with, I believe it's about 1,000 people it'll hold, when the storm built so fast and it was going to be an evacuation D level, they would then have to evacuate that school, and in a time frame that would not be sustainable to get people out safely. So they decided to take that off the list. It was not by our choice. It was kind of a shock to us. As far as putting the shelter in town, I don't believe there's an area in town that would be suitable, because Tarpon Springs is very low lying. Most of the town is a B, with a few pockets here and there. So I don't see that happening. Now, as far as something to put people into other than a hurricane, I think we would probably have some buildings. The Methodist Church, I've been in discussions with them to see what they can do. They're talking about what they're able to provide us. We will also have the city's rec gym that we could use in a pinch if we had to. So there are some areas that we could put people for short term if we needed to do that.
Well, thank you for that explanation. I never heard that before, and that explains why we don't have one.
So where do people of Tarpon Springs go if it's October of '22 and we have a hurricane that demonstrates explosive intensification, as is becoming more common? where do people go, and how widely advertised to the citizens of our city are the availability of shelters?
They're advertised by the hurricane flyers, papers that come out annually. We give a presentation here to the commission. It's on social media. The hurricane shelters for Tarpon residents are probably mostly at Palm Harbor, right off of Alderman. I think it's Carlisle Elementary School or Middle School, Palm Harbor Middle and Palm Harbor High. There is one in Eastlake. So we advertise that through our social media pages, the city's pages, etc. And there's a bunch of apps now available that people can get and get a lot of information off that. Alert Pinellas, Pinellas Ready, social media apps through the county that people can go on to get all this type of information and find out where they need to go.
And of course, the companion question to that, people who are elderly, people who are mobility compromised, and people who do not have transportation, what are the provisions for dealing with that?
We have with the county, we have a special needs program that people can sign up for ahead of time. There's a survey form that they are sent, or we can do it over the phone. What they need, if they need a special needs shelter where they have to be oxygen dependent, there's a special shelter for them to go to. We gather all that information. Right now, I believe we have a little over 200 and some people in the system for Tarpon Springs. We have school buses lined up that'll come. We put a firefighter on with the bus drivers, and they're routed through to pick up the people. They're taken to shelters, and at the end of the storm, when it's safe for them to come back to their home, we bring them back to their home with that. So we update that program annually. Around June or so, before June, we'll start sending letters out to all of them to make sure that they still need it, or if they are no longer in need of the services. So it's very robust.
Are there local organizations and churches, et cetera, that assist you in that endeavor?
No, because usually they're trying to, get themselves in line, and we don't want to put more people in danger than we need to. So we usually try to keep it just pretty much to ourselves to try to deal with the issues.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have one more question for you, and this is sort of different. You have really large trucks that you use. Is there any looking at developing electric fire trucks or things that don't use fossil fuels? Is that something that's in the works anywhere?
There is a company that has just developed the first electric fire truck.
Wow.
It's extremely expensive. I don't know how well it's being used yet. I have only heard of a handful of departments overseas that have used them. So I think it's really in the testing phase at this point, but it may come about. I think they have to be able to make sure that they can last for a long period of time on electric power, because if they're sitting on scene of a fire that could take 12 hours, and that pump has to run for 12 hours at a high pace, I don't know how long the batteries would last. So I think it's still really in the testing phase.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, I think the fire truck I saw was over $2 million just to buy. So it's quite expensive stuff.
And how much is a regular fire truck?
Today, the one we have ordered right now is about $850,000.
So twice as much.
Twice as much.
What about hydrogen fuel cell driven fire trucks, et cetera?
I haven't heard that yet. Haven't seen that.
Is it Mark V. Jacobson from Stanford? I'm not getting the name exactly right there, but it's something like that, who is something of a guru in, clean energy, et cetera, has argued that for passenger vehicles, electricity makes sense, but for large vehicles, probably hydrogen fuel cells make more sense. And then, of course, there's the discussion about electric airplanes, and I can't quote you the numbers, but a 747 powered only by batteries would never leave the ground because the batteries would weigh 7 to 10 times as much as the plane. So.
And it wouldn't leave the ground with me either. So
Okay.
I haven't heard that concept out there yet, so maybe that's the future.
Oh, and back to the talk, the discussion about the emergency shelters. When we had our last hurricane where we were told to evacuate, it was the first one that we'd ever been through, because I've only lived here since 2012. And our family ended up taking our pets and driving up to Jacksonville, which is where the hurricane ended up going. But how many people respond and evacuate and actually utilize the shelters? Because when we said we were going, a lot of our neighbors who were Floridian natives were laughing, you know, and they were just thinking that we were really silly for being afraid of what was going on.
I don't have exact numbers. I know the shelters are used. Majority of the people that evacuate try to get out of the area. Shelters are not a great place to be. It's crowded, it's noisy, they can become dirty fast. So a lot of people try not to use shelters. It's kind of a last resort if you just don't have any place to go and you need to get out of the area. So the numbers are probably 5–10%, I'm guessing. So there's not a lot of people that use them. Most people stay home, which we don't recommend, but a lot of people try to get out of the area.
If I may interrupt, it is time for our next goal area, but we can definitely revisit this topic. This will be our final goal area, which we will be reviewing. The 6 objectives in the natural systems goal area help communities protect and restore the places that provide resources to support life. And here the 6 objectives are NS1, green infrastructure, NS2, biodiversity and invasive species, NS3, natural resource protection, NS4, outdoor air quality, NS5, water and the environment, and NS6, working lands. And here the committee has chosen at least one outcome or action for each of the natural systems areas. And for this category, the city's arborist has provided some excellent questions and suggestions and ideas. One question she posed is, will trees be considered an asset? And that other communities are doing this, giving trees an asset number and GIS location. And furthermore, the city of Tampa has land development codes designed for no net canopy loss, which was the result of a 20-year study with several partners. And if this is the direction that the community would like to head, a similar study would be useful for the city of Tarpon Springs. Currently, the city of Tarpon Springs is at 35% canopy coverage. And one question posed here is, what percent would be acceptable to achieve the goals? And perhaps a social survey would be beneficial here. An inventory of public-owned property, parks, special area districts, and all street trees has never been done. For close to 2 years, she has been researching this process, and with collaboration from University of Florida IFAS, professors from University of Florida, and other municipal arborists, a rough draft of a social survey and basic collection criteria has been developed and can be provided. I will also move on to the next slide. This one does also carry on to 2 slides. The comprehensive plan is also looking at some of these areas as well with regards to protection of the tree canopy. And various public education and outreach events are regularly conducted at schools and in organizations to increase this familiarity within the community. And the Arbor Day Foundation Tree City USA Growth Award activities are a great framework for creating and managing the urban forest. And as a general comment about this category, the TD Green Space Grants offer North American municipalities in support of creative programs and projects that use green infrastructure development, tree planting, forestry stewardship, and community green space expansion as a way to advance environmental and economic benefits toward a low-carbon economy. And now we can turn to questions.
Questions from the committee?
Do we have any designation for amazing trees that should be kind of heritage, historical protected trees, like the big one in Safety Harbor? Did somebody mention that before?
We've got Shannon Brewer, city arborist here.
Yay.
Yeah.
Our comprehensive plan, or the land development code, does not actually have a section designated for historical trees or set that criteria in there at this time.
You know, not understanding how that could happen, what are the mechanisms to make, you know, a heritage tree? I know when I was in Canada a long time ago at the Bouchard Gardens, there were certain areas of buildings and vegetation, you know, rows of trees that were really ancient and, you know, like the redwoods, that were declared heritage, which meant that they could never be touched unless they were diseased. So how can we go about initiating something like that?
So there are standards within urban forestry practices and within the community already sets, and even the state of Florida has a grand tree standard that they use, and you can look at the grand trees around the state. It would take a ordinance change to put some of that together. Safety Harbor, Dunedin have been sending me things, and I've been communicating with them on that. I do know that the comprehensive plan is, and the stuff that planning and zoning has been working on, they have addressed that they will talk to me at some point, but they've got to get through their stuff first before they can get to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one thing that I would like to explore. I just don't know if the community has the desire for that or not, because we haven't had a social survey. And I think that social survey that I've been trying to put together, would it actually address that question?
Okay, some of it would be in the light of sustainability and urban heat index mitigation. You know, the fact that we have 35% canopy is an awesome thing, but it could be a greater amount, which would make it easier for even city workers that were out weeding, for instance, to benefit from. And it would be something worth considering in the future. Thank you.
I'm Shannon. So I really want to applaud your program of giving trees away to the community. I think that's it's successful. I know I've taken advantage of that. Is there a way to give things away other than trees? Things that may ground cover or something that could stop erosion or anything like that, or are trees the best thing?
So within the framework of the section of the ordinance that I particularly use, it is stated in 133 specifically about tree bank funding. And that section G is actually what it is very, very specific on what it can and cannot be used for. So if that was something that, you know, the community wanted to do, the tree bank money would have to be specifically used the way it's already outlined in ordinance.
It's a great program.
It's a lot of fun. And actually tomorrow is Florida Urban Day, Arbor Day, and I'm going out to Booker Creek, and I've been partnering with them, and we're doing a youth program, and I'm going to send the drone up, and I work a lot with IFAS, Booker Creek, Pinellas County. I don't know if you've seen my knowledge and nibbles that Miss Diane has helped me put together, but pulling in other experts to come talk to our community, that's what actually gave us the growth award for 2020. 2021. And I really encourage you to look at that framework for Tree City USA. It is very detailed and it has great items in there. And I think that's why I put the list in there for you to be able to go on the website and look at it. That growth award section has already put a lot of things out there with your ideas. Just tell me which ones you guys want to do. You know, I'm willing to do it. It's already there. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel, just use it.
I have a question while you're still standing there before you sit down. You discussed in here doing the tree inventory. And I know that a comment made at one point was, you know, if you don't know what you have, how do you move forward? And I appreciated that comment. So what, how close are you to getting to that point where you feel we could have a tree inventory done so we actually understand what trees the city has, what their, I don't want to say what their purpose is, but in knowing what you have, you understand what needs to be mitigated. You also understand what needs to, maybe certain things need to be planted versus not planted. Certain things need to come down because they are diseased and things like that. So where do you find yourself in that process of being able to do an actually, that sounds like a huge undertaking to do a tree inventory, but where do you find yourself in that process at this point?
So Ms. Pat and I from Planning and Zoning and Paramita from GIS, I don't know where exactly to put that. Our packet needs to go to my supervisor next, and my supervisor needs to elevate it. I do have 2 meetings that I'm trying to put together with the University of Florida to learn about how to get interns into the city. And before I really present that, I would like to explore that opportunity more and find the funding for it before, you know, I want to have an answer to that question when it comes up. And I have 2 meetings scheduled for next month for that, about that, so.
Okay, good, thank you.
Shannon, if I could add to that, my understanding working with you on it is the biggest hurdle is the people power. I mean, that is a tremendous thing to try to cover, I don't even know, 10,000 trees and find their locations and measure them and what species it is. So I think that's the big area she's working on, is ideas of, can we do this with volunteers? Otherwise, you're talking about a lot of dollars to have a contractor do that, basically.
So in my research, I've found as low as $5 per tree, all the way up to $12 per tree on the dollar figure that some of the communities have been spending. It just depends on how many criteria and how much it goes into the GIS side, or how that integration happens, where the dollar figure comes up.
Denise touched on heat and what we're facing, and I just want to expand on that a little bit. I'm sure many of you have seen the Union of Concerned Scientists projection for increasing heat in the 12th Congressional District, going from an average of 4 days a year, historically, of 105 degree index or higher, to 81 days a year of 105 degree index, heat index or higher, within 30 years by 2050. And I remember saying to the Board of Commissioners a few years ago, ain't nobody going to be shopping in Tarpon Springs when the heat index is 105. Well, one of the ways to mitigate heat is with trees, is with shade trees, obviously. And if Tarpon Springs looks very inviting to tourists despite the heat, with trees, with hydration stations, with cooling stations, with fountains, etc., then we may be able to maintain some of our tourist dollars that would ordinarily be lost because of the heat. Just one other thing that occurred to me when I was looking over the Pinellas County plan is that they talk about flooding, and they talk about tornadoes, and they talk about hurricanes, and they don't really talk about heat, or if they did, I missed it. Probably Tarpon Springs, we need to develop our own projections for what we're facing that are more specific than the Pinellas County. And we put that in one of our recommendations. So that we're looking, if you'll forgive me, forgive me for this pun, we're looking at specific trees and not at the forest in Tarpon Springs.
A follow-up on that with respect to Tarpon Springs and trees, and this may be both for Shannon and Tracy. One of the places where most people go or think of Tarpon is down at the sponge docks, and there aren't very many trees down there. And it's pretty open and pretty hot. So if that's going to be a place that one wants to keep having, which is part of the character of Tarpon, how do you introduce shade trees down there? Is it possible?
In order to get big trees to grow, you need a lot of underground space. An oak tree, it's been studied, needs a 30 by 30 space for a root zone. Do we have that? That's the question. And to do trees down there, when the water table is high, how do you mitigate that? There are some wonderful things out there, silvicels, engineered sidewalk. They cost money. Are you willing to spend the money for the underground to keep the canopy above you?
These civil cells are the ability to keep these trees healthy, hydrated, and it provides that space underground that will give the tree the ability to survive. And we don't have that in the city currently right now. This is something that Shannon and I are investigating, but it does take money and it does take approval, and we have plenty of information regarding that, and I think the sponge docks would be an excellent place to actually put this forward to see how it works and to be able to experience it.
I got a tour with Mr. Paul and Project Admin set up about a year ago or so, and Safety Harbor showed us what they did to preserve the Baranoff oak as well as the silvicels with the new building construction. I know the building has like a name and I can't think of it right now. And so I've been showing people, and Tracy and I have together been really looking at this stuff, and it's time to implement them.
Correct.
I agree with you. So,
What about the root structure for smaller trees like green buttonwood is just one example?
Green buttonwood, I believe they say 6 feet from planting, a 10 by 10 square for those. So.
Okay.
And think of your head, it's uncompacted soil. So even if you have a sidewalk, you've got to have compaction for the building. So these structure cells help put all that energy into the plastics and the stuff that they have, so then you can still have that uncompacted, aerated. Trees need just as much oxygen below ground as we do above ground.
Yeah, I think
So,
Dr. Robinson's point about picking the right tree and the right application might come into play here. And I wanted to also add that working with Bob on the engineer of record selection process, that's something that we asked in our interviews is, what kind of things would you be doing to promote tree canopy in your street designs? So we're looking ahead to when we bring designs to you all and to the commission to approve, that we've thought of those things in there.
Well, it seems as though the city is committing long-term to the sponge docks. We're putting up a big archway to enter, and it seems like without the trees, we won't have a future down there that extends very far. So I really applaud you working on this and hope that lots of people listen and find the money.
Tracy's a great teammate.
It's good infrastructure. I mean, it's a way to use infrastructure. The infrastructure doesn't just have to be roads. It can be
Correct.
tree infrastructure.
Shan and I work on several different types of projects with several different requests from the commission or thereof, and there's so much to be done. We're all about, you know, longevity and sustainability, and we do practice Florida-friendly plant material, right place, right plant, and we want everything to be the survival of it, you know, the investment that's put into it, what it provides to the community and the public, and we're working diligently on that to the best of our ability as things come across our desk.
Right.
I do have one quick idea to add for just the shading on the sponge docks. Trellises and flowering vines. I don't know how much root system they need, but a lot of them take off like weeds, so you just make a nice design trellis over the walkways and they kind of take over. I don't know how feasible all that, but
We're up for anything, really, you know. We love to hear feedback and, you know, questions and suggestions. So, you know, it's just a matter of putting a picture together and, you know, recommendations, and we'd always love to hear from you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so there are a couple more slides I would like to cover. There were some additional staff comments, not relating to a specific area, but are related in the concept. From the finance department, some suggestions were promoting composting for use as fertilizer, work with schools to help them explore the latest thinking in sustainable thinking, and create a sustainability fee possibly attached to building permits issued to provide funding to go towards sustainability projects. Are there any questions or comments on these suggestions? If not, I will advance through the last few slides, which are just the appendix. I would just like to acknowledge that there is some additional supplemental information here related to a couple different goal areas, such as listing different organizations and the statutes that the police department referenced in the slides, and the fire department as well. And that comes to the end of our presentation. It is 4:45, so we do have a few extra minutes if you wanted to revisit a certain goal area and ask additional questions. Is there any particular goal area that the committee would like to revisit?
I don't have a particular goal area, but as you may have noticed just in looking at all of the different sections, you know, economy and jobs and climate and energy and education, arts and community, there's a lot of specificity when you're actually reading the STAR program, you know, for outcomes and for objectives. But there's so much that bleeds together. And I know that that's probably the way it is, you know, between departments in the city. How do you work with that when something that you're working on really is very closely linked to another department in the city, and you collaborate on that? Because I think that what we're looking at here in writing the plan and the comprehensive plan being worked on simultaneously is that everything is going to be integrated to a large degree. So how does that work for you in general before even sustainability came into the picture?
I'll answer that. I know we work together quite well just day to day. I'll give you an example, just an easy example, but the splash park that we operate very successfully, it's very popular. I think there's 4 different departments that are involved in the operation of that, and as you know, it's a daily operation with very little room for error, but yet we're able to pull it off through working together. And I think that same kind of approach goes for those types of things you're referencing that involve several departments. And, we pick up the phone, go down to someone's office. It's not too far, the different offices apart. There's an advantage to being a city of 25,000 or so versus a large county. So, but you're right, it's a good point. It's something we have to work on continuously.
The county vulnerability assessment said that Tarpon Springs has 19,900 people. That's not correct, is it? Aren't we closer to 25,000?
It's seasonal. Yeah, I would say that that's not correct. There's a large variation in permanent residents and seasonal residents, but yeah, I would think that's definitely an undercount.
Yeah, last census number I saw was high 25,000 range.
And one of the big issues that got mentioned as a tough issue and has been talked about in the commission and in the commission candidates is this issue of affordable housing, and especially the issue that many people who work in Tarpon Springs can't afford to live here. Is there a department that, Paul, that addresses that, or how does that get, is that a staff issue? Because we can't sustain our community if we can't have people who work here and have a diverse community that can afford to live here. Like maybe we all won't be able to.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. It's not something that I track or that I know of being tracked.
I will say there is a housing element to the comprehensive plan. That's why they call it the comprehensive plan. That's why I've gotten up so much times today. But yeah, I mean, that is a concern we have, and it's something that we really need to guide our vision in the comprehensive plan. We're going to grow, but how and at what pace and where is really what we're looking to answer, and what kind of community do we want to see in 5 and 15 and 25 years from now. So
I know that this is a big discussion in St. Pete, and the new mayor has brought it up. And one of the reasons is, and it's not unlike what could happen in Tarpon, is that a lot of the housing and apartments and condos in St. Pete are becoming luxury, so that a lot of people are buying them and living in them, and then they're not here. So we have a large snowbird population here. So, I mean, and a lot of things are being bought up as second homes or whatever, and then prices are going up, and people sell their houses because they can get a lot of money for them. So that integrity of our community is based on enough people living here who are here year-round and commit to the city, both in terms of participation and work and so forth.
And that's definitely something that we're going to be looking at in the comprehensive plan, but I am happy to say that, we do have a very established historic community here with deep roots, and we want to look to preserve that and the different ways that we can help that.
I would like to point out that in keeping with the agenda, we still have to have time for public comments, staff comments, then following with committee comments. So, Paul, I will leave you to direct that portion of the meeting.
Do we have public attending? And are there people with their hands raised? Apparently not. So we're open to staff comments now?
Well, Mark LaCour, City Manager. I'm just happy to be here, to be attending this meeting. I've told some of you individually and thanked you for the work you've done as a Sustainability Committee. I'm very proud of these people that are going to be working with you. It's a joy to sit back there and watch all of them throughout the process, throughout beginning and starting this, and now to finally join staff with you together to go forward with a great future I think we have in Tarpon Springs for sustainability. So thank you, and thank you to the staff that made me very proud today.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Tracy Wallace, Parks Division. To go back and reflect on some of the things that Shannon and I were discussing and answering for you guys, there is, the urban forestry is very important. I was looking into and inquiring with my director, Tom Funchin, about having a urban forestry division. And what that would do and benefit for the city is not only would it benefit and be managed by the Parks Division, it would benefit just about every division here out in the field. It would also alleviate a lot of things that Shannon provides the city by having a certified arborist as the person leading that group and managing the crews out in the field. This would be an in-house managed division with personnel, and it would be able to accommodate quick emergencies. It would kind of, in the sense, when we have multiple requests all the time, and unfortunately, with limited staff, we can't get to it as fast as we'd like to. The emergencies, of course, are taken care of immediately, but I think with the commissioners and the requests of the public, it just keeps growing. So that's something that I'd like to put out there as far as providing to the city. And there's a lot of projects being done. We can do things in-house by removing, trimming, replanting, and stuff like that. So thank you.
Thank you. Other comments from staff?
I just have one more. I did mention that we are going to be at First Friday in February. On the Saturday following, we will be having a community workshop at the rec center. So just wanted to get that on everybody's radar.
Excellent. And that is when again?
February 6th at 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the Saturday afternoon. We were hoping that was maybe a little bit more convenient for some people. So then the 5th, and we'll be at First Friday the 4th. All right, thank you.
Okay, and are there comments from the committee?
Well, I just want to thank all of you, and it's clear to me how much all of you have done and your expertise, and we're very just fortunate to have you in our city.
Likewise, I'd like to thank you for all being here and the work that you've done, the preparation, and you're obviously passionate about sustainability as well, and that warms my heart, and I think it's going to serve us very well as a community. Thank you. And I'm very, very happy now to have a sustainability coordinator. Thank you, Robin, for being with us.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I applaud all your effort. When I first saw the STAR framework, my eyes were like a deer in headlights. And like we said, we've had over a year to be working with it. So I applaud all your efforts in getting, back to us and answering all our questions, and then taking the time out to come here today and kind of help work with us in, again, moving forward to getting the comprehensive plan and the strategic plan, and just kind of getting everybody involved in getting Tarpon Springs where we want to get to. So thanks again for your time.
And I wanted to add, if you guys see anything that you feel like we missed or something that you're very passionate about that you'd like to see in the plan, I feel like besides the comments, we didn't hear too many additions, but if you got them, let us know.
I want to thank the city manager, Mr. Licouris, for making this possible. and for being here and for what he said, the kind words. You know, as Robin indicated at the beginning of this meeting, this is an educational process and it's an ongoing process. So thank you all for being here and for sharing so much information with us and helping us flesh out this plan that now has to be incorporated in the comprehensive plan, et cetera.
Dr. Robinson, thanks for conducting the meeting on short notice. We appreciate your help. You did such a good job, we're going to ask you to do it again in about an hour. But thank you, and thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I guess I will use my gavel and call the meeting to an end.
Thanks again.